We're talking today with Les Dykema, a Vietnam veteran. The interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. All right, Les, can you start us off with some background on yourself? To begin with, where and when were you born?
I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan in 1949, July 18th.
And where did you grow up?
In Hudsonville.
Right.
Spent my life there.
All right, and what did your family do for a living?
My dad was a truck driver, and my mom was a maid. And did a little bit of farming. I went through a Christian high school, and then spent a year in junior college because Calvin wouldn't take me. And I'm surprised JC did. After the first year, I had a 1.5. My two friends had a 1.3 and a 1.2, so they weren't coming back. And the Vietnam War was heating up at that time.
Now, what year was this?
This is '68.
Okay, it's pretty hot by then.
Yeah, it was heating up really, really well. And we figured we'd all go in together because they were going to get drafted anyway. I didn't want to go by myself, so we went into the military police corps.
All right. Now, when did you actually go sign up?
We signed up on the 6-month delay program.
Okay.
Okay, which means that we would after 6 months we could do what we wanted to, and then we had to go in. That was November 15th of 1968, where we had to
report.
Had a report.
Okay.
And then to Fort Knox, and then on to Fort Gordon.
All right. Talk a little bit about the experience at Fort Knox. I guess first of all, you had to go for a physical at some point, right?
Yeah, that was in Detroit.
Okay.
That was in Detroit. And when we got to Fort Knox, I volunteered for 3 years. I was not drafted. Mm-hmm. And I knew I had made a huge mistake. I hated it, absolutely hated it. And then I got called into the office. It was probably 3 weeks into training. My commander called me in and said that my dad had died in a car accident, and that I was going to go home, and that I had to be the man of the family, take care of business, and come back. And so I did. I left and went home, and got home, and I was coming into we grew up in an old farmhouse. My dad was there. And about crapped my pants. But it turns out it was my Aunt Charlotte that had died in a car accident. Mm-hmm. Somehow they got it all screwed up. So I was there. I was pallbearer for my Aunt Charlotte, and 3-4 days went by, and my dad says, "Well, don't you think you should be going back?" I'm in no hurry. Okay, well, a week went by. I got a call from one of my friends I enlisted with. He said, "You better get back here." Talking to the commander, and I let him know that it was your aunt, not your dad. He's very upset. So my dad, truck driver, he loves to drive. He drove me back to Fort Knox. And it wasn't good. Okay, it wasn't good. He was very, very angry. And so after training, me and there's a few others, we'd have to get our brooms, and we'd march out to the tank training areas, and we'd sweep the sand to get the tracks. You know, it was a harassment thing. Mm-hmm. And then we'd come back, and we did this for a while, and it wasn't pleasant, but I made it through, and then we went to Fort Gordon.
Yeah. Did you have to restart the training cycle because you missed a week? You just went back and joined in there?
Yep. Went right back and joined in.
Yeah. Were the drill sergeants any better than the commander, or was it all pretty much the same kind of thing?
Drill sergeants are a whole different breed. But I think I embarrassed my commander. You know, mm-hmm. I think he looked like an idiot, and that did not bode well for me at all. You know, and
did you have any trouble sort of physically with the training, or could you handle that?
No, I'm 19 years old. Wasn't bad. I just didn't like it. It was cold. Mm-hmm. Winter in Fort Knox is cold. Everything's cold. And
were you still in old World War II barracks, or did you have better ones? Or?
World War II barracks.
Okay.
Same way at Fort Gordon when we got down there. Mm-hmm. Now they're all gone.
Yep.
But they had to be with coal. Well, military police training, they get you up very, very early. They don't give you a lot of sleep. And you wait in line to eat in formations. And it's constantly at parade rest, straight, 2 steps forward, parade rest. And it can take take an hour and a half before you can get in and get any chow, and then you have minutes to eat it, and you're back in formation. Well, it's dark at 4:30 in the morning, and me and a friend, being that they were World War II barracks, there was an opening underneath the buildings like this, and then it went where the steps would come in. Well, underneath the steps is somewhat secluded, so I thought it'd be a good idea. We have an alarm clock. It's dark. Nobody noticed us gone. Let's just go on in there, set the alarm. We'll sleep another hour, hour and a half, and then get back in line and have breakfast. And you know, this worked so well for about 2 weeks. Crawl out, nobody'd see us crawl down in there, alarm, and then one day I heard steps. I could look up through the slots, and they were really polished boots. And just about that time, the alarm went off. And it was 4 or 5 drill sergeants. They came right around. We were busted. Okay, we got busted. And my job there to the end was to remove coal from a big coal bin over here to one over there in a wheelbarrow. And so that type of punishment, they didn't care for what I did. But, you know, I got a lot of rest, and you got to do what you got to do.
A couple weeks more of sleep. All right. What does the MP training actually consist of?
A lack of sleep, a lot of discipline, never knowing. They do stuff, they come in with a white glove and they look around, they found any dirt, everything had to be GI'd. They come in the middle of the night, wake you up with pots and pans and get up in formation. They check your boots. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be just exactly perfect.
But were they teaching you anything that you'd use on the job?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, you go through the typical stuff. You know, you train with your 45, okay? You train how to deal with people, what's expected, what not to do. And, yeah, it's hard to say. You know, a lot of it is classroom stuff. Yeah. I don't even remember what they talked about, to be honest with you.
Military law, maybe, what the rules are.
Yeah. What's expected. And so, you know, it went through its 8 weeks, and I hardly have any sleep. But I'll tell you, at the end of that 8 weeks, I think any one of us, they could have put us on a roof of a building and said jump, and we would have done it. That simple. Would have done it. All right, so, you know, the training, it breaks you down and then builds you up, and here's the product. But I've never liked authority, and I've always had a problem with authority, and I still do today. All right. And it has not fit me well. But
you managed to get through that round of training without getting yourself kicked out or sent back to the infantry or something else like that?
I'd love to have gotten myself kicked out, but that wasn't going to happen at that time.
Right. Okay. And you'd gotten into the MPs in the first place because you were willing to sign up for 3 years? Was that
well, my
part
dad
of the
was
deal?
an MP. Mm-hmm. So father like son, I didn't know what I wanted. Mm-hmm. I knew I didn't want to do what Mike did. I didn't want to go into the infantry. That was dangerous, you know.
But they were giving you the option, but when you enlisted, you were able to pick your MOS at that point. And was that in exchange for going for 3 years? Or okay. So you still have that, because that's different people have different levels of control of what they do at different phases in Vietnam. So that places where you were.
If we were drafted, we would have probably ended up in the infantry. Yeah. If we go another year, maybe we can pick something that, you know, stay out of that area. Mm-hmm.
All right. So when did you finish AIT?
No, that was November, December, January 15th. We headed to Georgia, and February, March, about the end of March.
Okay. And what did they do with you at that point?
We got orders, and I remember my friend that I enlisted with came running up and said, "Hey, we got orders. We know where we're going." I said, "Where are we going?" And he got quiet, and I said, "Well," he said, "Well, I'm going to Alaska, and Jimmy D is going to Alaska." "Oh, okay. You're not going there. You're staying here." "Oh, okay. I like Georgia." But that was only temporary, because anybody who did stay there was sent. After 6 months, I was the longest there, before they sent me to which was fine with me because Jamie was going to hook me up, which didn't happen.
Now, so you basically spend 6 months on active duty at Fort Gordon after training. What were you doing there?
I was fortunate enough to be stationed at a military recreation area, and it had 3 large connecting lakes, one for officers, one for sergeants, and for the public, regular GIs. And it was a wonderful period of duty. We had patrol boats. You know, we lived on the compound in the woods. I mean, it was a very, very nice tour of duty.
Okay. Now, you're living in Georgia at that time. Were you aware at all of any of the kind of racial or civil rights things that were going on? Did that affect life in that camp at all?
I heard about the riots in Detroit, and that was about it. That was about it. There was one situation where we went swimming in the sergeant's area lake, and they had a dock, and we had one black guy that lived with us. Okay. And we swam out to the dock. Well, he was not a good swimmer. And we came in, and he dove down, and he, just kind of went to the bottom, which was about maybe only 10 feet to the bottom. And I came after him, and I went down there, and here he was doing one of these numbers. He was going to drown. And I took him by the legs, and I kept pushing him up. He could get air, and the other guys came. We brought him in. Now, what was interesting about that was everybody in that house that we lived in, there was probably about 6 of us who lived in there, everybody had gotten something stolen. Everybody, except me. And I think I know who was doing the stealing. And I think I know why I'm the only guy that didn't get anything stolen from, okay? But other than that, no, you know, I never noticed any of that.
Now, did you get to go off the base much?
Yeah, we lived off the base. You could do that. It's like a job. Once you're done with training, you're done. You go. You know.
All right. Now, while you're there, then, are other people getting called and sent off to Vietnam or other places?
And new guys are always coming in. And, and I got my orders, and you have to take a bunch of shots, and I was sick for about dry heaves for about 2 days, 3 days, just terrible. But then, you know, you're ready to go. Went home, and then went over.
All right. Now, you said, well, once you go home, then from home, do you go to the point of debarkation, and where did you go out of?
Where did I fly out of? I think I flew out of Oakland, California.
Yeah. And did you fly out of the airport, or there's an Air Force base there? Is Travis?
I know it was Oakland. We left there and stopped and refueled in, I believe it was Anchorage, and then went across, and I think we stopped at Wake Island and refueled, and then went on. I've been over twice. So one time we stopped in Japan to refuel.
Probably the normal route would have been Anchorage and then Japan, because Wake would have been kind of out of your way.
Yeah,
if you go via Hawaii, you might stop in Wake.
Maybe it was Japan. There's an island, the second time. There's an island there somewhere where we stopped.
Yeah.
A real small little dinky place, one building on it.
Yeah. Wake and Midway are like that, and they're both really small.
Yeah, really small, and they had a thing to the Marines there. And
yeah, that's probably Wake.
It could have been Wake.
Because they defended Wake at the beginning of World War II. Yeah.
I'd go nuts if I was stationed there. I mean, it's beautiful, but we're in the middle of nowhere. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. So when did you actually arrive in Vietnam for the first time?
About 3 o'clock.
But in terms of date?
Terms of date, I got there in October of '69.
Okay. So 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep, you seen the Vietnam coast, and you know everybody in the aircraft. We're all 18, 19, 20-year-olds. We're all curious. You know, everybody's peering out, trying to see what you know. It's going to be a new experience. Some of you guys aren't coming back, you know. So everybody's pretty curious, pretty quiet, and it looked like a normal coast, all lit up and stuff. And we got down, and 3 o'clock we were all assigned.
All right. Now, where did you land?
Landed, I believe, at Tonsanute Air Base.
So Saigon. Yeah.
Yes, right outside Saigon.
All right. You land at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, what was supposed to happen? What was your plan at that point in terms of your assignment?
I just assumed that Jamie would have my name set aside, that, I would be called and he'd be there and, take me aside and assign me some cush job somewhere.
So who was Jamie?
Jamie Cronenmeyer was a friend before I went into service. We did a lot of hunting together, and great guy. But it didn't work out that way, where he was sleeping when I got there.
So what was his job there?
He assigned all new-coming military police to their units throughout the country, right out of Saigon. And whoever needed what, he just assigned you.
Mm-hmm.
So he was going to assign me next to Saigon, and that would have worked out well, but it didn't.
So what happens instead?
There was somebody else that worked that shift, that night shift, and assigned me to the 1st Cav.
All right.
Okay, and that was, they assigned me to a place called Phuc Vinh.
Right. Now, did you stay at Tan Son Nhut for a while, or how did you stay around that area, or did you go straight out to the?
It didn't stay very long. You got just something to eat, and then you got into different lines. They put you in different lines and took you from there, and a bus comes and picks you up and, gets you to your new units.
Okay, and then how did you get out to Phuc Vinh then? Was that on a helicopter or a truck?
No, it was just a bus type.
Okay.
Bus dropped us off, and then, of course, the new commander comes out, introduces himself, and your sergeant will take you and show you where, here's your cot, here's your spot. Here's chows, you have to be up at this time, and we'll give you your duties sometime today or tomorrow, and they show you what you're going to do.
Now, did they give you any, the combat guys coming in for infantry, artillery, things like that, joining the 1st Cav at this time, they went through what they called the First Team Academy, a kind of a week-long Welcome to Vietnam course. Did you get something like that? Or was
a little bit, but I think that's mainly for infantry, because they're the guys that are going to be humping out there.
Yeah.
And but I don't remember much of it other than, you got a welcome to Vietnam, and they just go over stuff that you need to know.
All right.
Yeah.
I know, what were your first duties then once you're there?
They assigned me to a gate. I had to check all trucks coming in and out of that area, and did a pretty good job, but I did notice this moped would come in and this interpreter and leave, and he'd go by me and he'd just wave, and this went on for about 4 or 5 days, and I stopped him, wondered what was in the bags, and it turned out to be military food cans. He was probably selling in the village, making money, and I stopped him, and he said, maybe you're I was taking somebody else's, you get a little bit too, so there was a red or a black market thing going on, and I refused because I was trying to be a good soldier, and I'm glad I had my 16, because he started put his hand on his 45, and I brought my 16 up and radioed, and they brought some more MPs, and they confiscated it, and they took him away, and I thought, wow, this is, I did a good thing. But then the commander brought me in, and instead of saying, hey, you did a good thing, he says, I want to ask you something. He said, do you know how hard it is to get good Vietnamese interpreters? So I was taken off the gate at that point. Okay, and that started that downward trend in that military police corps for me. And, one thing led to the other, and I got sick of burning shit, sick of it. I got sick of getting up in the morning. I got sick of being harassed by this Sergeant Jackson. And I woke up one morning and decided I've had it. And I went outside the area, and it was pretty early, 6 o'clock, and the infantry unit next door was in the field, so they had a picnic table there, and I laid down on that picnic table and went to sleep. And but gets hot, and it wasn't long, a couple hours, 2-3 hours, and it was pretty hot, and I got up and went back into the military police compound and went back to my cot, and here comes this sergeant, and just getting angry, just irate, enraged, and he start yelling at me and screaming at me.
Now, why was he mad at you?
Because I didn't show up for reveille.
Okay.
And he had been harassing me, and I'm not conforming. And I had it. You know, what are you going to do? You're not going to shoot me. And what are you going to do? So his screaming and yelling, and give me a break. But then it's like I didn't hear him anymore. It's like I could hear him, but my mind just shut off, and I grabbed my M16 rifle, and I loaded it, and as I was turning around, he was already running like hell out the building. Okay, and I go right behind him. I'm not going to kill him. I have no intention of killing him, but this man has fucked with me for quite a while, and now I'm going to fuck with him. And I did. And he'd run between these tents, these lines. He'd trip over these lines, and every time he turned around and looked at me, his eyes were about this damn big. Every time he did, I'd put that rifle on him, and he'd squeal like a little girl, crawl and start running again. And I chased him. I wasn't going to kill him. I just wanted to really fuck him over. And he went into the command bunker, and then I retreated into a inner perimeter bunker, unloaded it, set the rifle here and the ammunition there, and maybe that much water at the bottom of this area, and I'm sitting there, and it wasn't going to be good. I was going to go to LBJ, Long Bin Jail. Most of that is black troops. I'm 19, military police kid. I ain't going to stand a chance in Long Bin Jail. Ain't going to stand a chance. And so you're trying to figure out your way. What are you going to do now? And I stood up, and I looked out the firing halls, and I'm surrounded by other MPs with rifles. I'm not going anywhere. And you can sit back and say, well, okay, obviously know where I'm at. If I come out of here with this rifle and get stupid, they're going to shoot me. If I don't do something soon, they're going to gas me out of here. They'll just simply throw in a CS gas container, and they're going to gas my ass out of here. And then this Sergeant Jackson appears at the top of these steps going down, because the sun was behind him, so it cast a shadow down these steps. And in M16, when you take it out and you pull it back, it discharges the round. You put this, it's got a button where you can hit it and it'll chamber another round. But there was no clip in it, but it was ready to do that. And he starts coming in, and he starts saying, I'm coming down, I'm going to take that rifle away, and you're coming out of here with me, which would have been perfect for me. Just, okay, let him play the hero. But, I watched the light come up to about his middle of his back, and I reached over on the M16 and hit that button, and he heard it chambering, but it wasn't chambering around. He thought it was. Okay. And I never seen a guy turn around, fall on his knees, and crawl out of there so fast in my life. And I'm thinking, there was your opportunity. There was your opportunity. And then I heard from my commander. He says, Private Dykema, may I enter? I said, yes, sir. He came on down. And he's seen the rifle and the clips, and I'm sitting there. And he sits down next to me. So what's the problem? I says, I've had enough. This harassment, I've had enough. Not going to do it no more. He said, well, what if sometimes when somebody like you and one of my sergeants don't get along, would you like to leave the unit and go further to the front? I said, yeah, I would. He said, fine, we'll make that happen. And he leaves. Okay? I peek out, and I'm not surrounded by anybody. And so I take my rifle and it clips, and I walk out, and get hit in the back of the head or anything, And I go in and sit down on my cot. And nothing, like it never happened. And about a week went by, and I found the commander of this in the E7 Jackson. I said, sir, you were saying that I was going to go get out of here? He said, well, we've talked, and you're a problem, and we're not going to give another commander one of our problems. And you're going to spend your year with me in E7 Jackson here, and he's going to have a full duty for you. And that's where I started to have to burn shit again. And then they finally kicked me out. The commander's list for toilet paper pretty well did it.
Can you explain that? Because you explained it off camera, but not on. Basically, you had a process by which you got yourself moved out. So what did you do?
Well, my job was, as a punishment, was to what they call burn shit. And it was a half a barrel, and you could put these big gloves on, and you pull it out, and you go to a vat, and you pour it in there, and then you pour diesel fuel in there, and stir it around like a witch's brew and light it on fire. Not difficult. Got to be careful, though, when you move that, because it tends to, get out of control, which you learn real quick. And you burn it. You do that twice a day, And after I wasn't going to be leaving, I started my own little thing where I would harass them. And I'd go in, I'd take my glove, and I'd pick out a turd, for a better word. That's what it was. And during the day when E7 was there, first time I put it under his pillow. Got it all set how he made his bed and stuff, just put it under his pillow. And the next morning, he had found it. He was irate. I mean, irate. I was suspect, but anybody could have been doing it. And I never told anybody I did that. So even when they offered, vacation at Vung Tau for 3 days, anybody who gives us a name. And even when the commander, 3 o'clock, went into his command bunker and sat behind his desk and put his hat on, and opened the drawer and found the list of problem soldiers, and I'm on the top 3.
So you went into his office.
Yeah. He's sleeping. He's not in that area. He's sleeping, and he never heard. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody's up.
So you went in. You sat on his desk, put his hat on.
Put his hat on, and looked around, and opened his drawers and stuff. Looking around. Hey, what are you going to do to me? I'm already burning shit. What are you going to do to me? And found this list, and then I went into his private John and used it as toilet paper and left it there for him to find.
So this was a list of what?
There were the top 3. All 3 of us ended up being removed at the same time. One gentleman was on there because he had 2 grenades, one with E7 Jackson's name on it, one with the commander's name on it. They found in his footlocker. So, obviously he was going to be gone. And there was one other one that just start shooting up. No, they didn't hit anybody, just start shooting up between the tents, just taking it. So that the 3 of us, there were 2 incidents. I would have been the 3rd. I think that's what saved me from going to Long Bin jail, because the unit would have been investigated at that time. And we came in one day and said, pack your stuff up, you're out of here. And so I did, and went to headquarters, and there's the other 2 guys on the list with their stuff. And you throw your stuff out, and they go through your shoes looking for drugs or whatever, and stepping all on your clothes, the dirt, and then you put it all back in, and they go through the same thing with the other 2, and they're right on you. They're intimidating. 19, well, they're intimidating. They always are. And dropped me off at a combat engineers unit, and that commander told me I wasn't going to be any problem for him, and showed me my job with the generators, 8 generators, a little milk stool. That's where you sit. One of them stops, fill it up, check the oil, fill it up with fuel, start it. You think you can do that? Yeah, I can do that. Well, you sit on a milk stool between 8 generators all day with a tin roof over you. You go nuts. And I sabotaged 2 of them. Put dirt in the gas container, and they died.
How long had you put up with it before you did that?
Week.
Okay, about
Week was enough.
Right.
I'm not going to have my sanity after that. And I had it. It's time to change the dynamics of the situation, and that would have done it, and it did it. And a couple of sections went black, and they needed those generators. And I'm the obvious suspect, obviously. And so, boom, they took me, and it was 12 hours on, 12 hours off from 7 to 7. And went in this underground, like a tube, and I had a switchboard and some place to sit, and then I had a door, and it was lit down there, but I thought, hey, this is really cool. And they said, well, we figure while we're sleeping, you'll be awake, and while we're awake, you'll be sleeping. You'll be down here from 7 in the evening till 7 in the morning. Okay, well, this is cool. This is fine for a couple nights. I'm sitting here, and at 3:30, I go in there, and I wake up the cooks. And at 4 o'clock, I wake up the commander. And everybody had a set schedule that I had to wake up. Other than that, you don't get a lot of calls in Vietnam. Okay? It's dead. No books. Oh, my God. After 3 days, boring. You know, after a week, got to change the dynamics again. Okay? And so I figured, well, I'll let the cook sleep in. I'll get the commander up at 3 o'clock. I'll get that first sergeant up at 2:45. Yeah, I just screwed up their whole schedule, and then waited for the thing to change, which it did. And bang, pulled me in his office with 2 other sergeants, and said, "Get your shit together. You're going to Song Bay." I said, "To do what?" He said, "You're going to be part of a demolition team." I said, "No, I'm not. I don't have an MOS for that. You'll learn on the job. Chopper will be here shortly." And it did. Flew me out to Song Bay and introduced me to my new unit. And I should have just stayed comfortable, burning shit. But and then that's where I started working with them.
All right. Now, demolition team, what kind of work were you actually doing with them?
We were, I never wanted to be a part of the infantry. We were attached to the infantry. We were attached to tank units for mine sweeping in front of them. We did go into tunnels, but we didn't find the tunnels like they found in the Central Highlands.
Right.
Most of the tunnels we found were empty. They still made you go in them. And I never worried about, finding anybody there. I was more worried about snakes, because it's cool down there. And even to go in one, I was 165 pounds at that time, 6'2". Everybody says, well, only the short guys do it. But if you're part of a team, they're going to get real sick of saying, oh, I'd go in that tunnel, Jeff, but you're shorter than I am. You go every time.
Yep.
No, you draw straws. Draw straws, and a short straw goes in. And then you have a dilemma. If I draw right away, it's 1 in 10 chance. I draw the short. Or I can wait, and there's a good chance somebody else is going to draw it before I do. But then as they draw these long straws out, your odds get bigger and bigger until there's 2 straws left. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And how we always did it, we took a flashlight and a 45, and it's dark, and we'd hold on to each other's legs like this. And I would always first take the flashlight and do this, because obviously anybody who's in there knows they're not going to get out alive. It's probably quick to shoot. Okay, shoot my hand. I don't care. And in this case, I took my 45 and I slowly moved through where I was going to put my face and chest and see if anything moved on it there. And when nothing moved, no shot, then you slowly lower yourself in. And, you look around and the ceiling's only about this high. You can't stand up. And then you see another dark hole from about here to that wall. And there's some things there. There was bandages and different stuff, but nothing of much value. And then again, you crawl in and you don't get in front of the hole and do this. Okay, you get next door and put your flashlight on again and see if anybody, shoots. And if not, then you crawl through there. And then you can see there's an opening on the other side. And you crawl out there and nothing's in there. And we blow it up. Take munition, we blow it up, and we collapse it.
So these are not big complexes of things, but just little spider holes that might have a little tunnel and a couple of exits. And
there was tunnels that other soldiers found that had hospitals and all that stuff. We never, where we were, we never found any of that stuff. Thank God.
Right.
Okay. And we do a lot of wiring. We do a lot of Bangalore torpedoes. But when they bring in, usually what we would do is they were going to start a new LZ and they needed an area for choppers to get in. Our unit would rappel down with the C4 and we'd blow an area quickly while the other birds were just circling waiting to drop their troops in. We did that, and then once we did that, we had to clear an area once we had security, and then we'd put in the wire, okay? We'd set up a perimeter, and we do the Bangalore torpedoes. A Bangalore torpedo is probably an 8-foot piece of pipe that fits into each other, and we'd wire that with that cord, and it'd blow, okay? And it cleans everything level. Give yourself a field of fire.
So is that so that you're sort of clearing out the brush or whatever's around outside the perimeter? Or?
Yeah, wherever, and we'd hook a bunch of these in so they'd be long lines, and then 2 feet over again and again and again, and then we'd wire them up. And at that time we used electrical blasting caps, and you're supposed to have a crimpers. A crimpers is a little piece of equipment that you take the electrical blasting cap and you put the deck cord in, and you crimp it down. Well, we didn't have crimpers, so we used our teeth, which, looking back, was really stupid with electrical blasting cap. But nothing happened. We were very, very lucky. And then we had this all wired up one day. I'm sitting among it with 2 of my friends, and we're getting ready to blow it. Everything's set, and the infantry loved this shit because they loved the fire, and they loved to see this shit. And I said, I'm thirsty. I'm going to go up the hill and get some water. We had water up there. And so I left, and I probably walked about 50 yards. And here, right over the trees, you could hear this thump, 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 thump. Helicopter came in and came right over the top of us. And the gunner had lashed himself in, was hanging out like this, giving the peace signal as they came through and buzzed us. And, I don't know if that's how it happened, but it triggered our munitions. And I think it was, somebody said it was an AC/DC battery on the aircraft. I don't know if that's possible or not. But the electrical, it went, and munitions goes very fast. You don't really have time to, and dust, and then through the dust, my 2 friends, they come out like they're dazed. And they looked okay. And then all of a sudden you'd look at their pants and they'd be starting to turn dark red, or red. You could see something was bleeding, and their shirts would start bleeding and their face was starting to bleed, and it just backs and everything. And they came out and collapsed, and medevac came, got them out. I don't know if they survived or not. The very fine shrapnel, I have no idea what damage it caused, but it wasn't pretty. And I'd start thinking, a lot of these types of accidents happen. And it was probably a week later where a chopper came in, and they were looking for door gunners, volunteers, for Charlie Company, 227th Ghost Rider Saw Helicopter Battalion. And so I talked to at that time there was another minor accident that we lost 2 more guys. And we're down to maybe 6. And we've only been doing this 2 months. And we got a lot of time, and I looked at that, and I think, you know what? I'm going to volunteer. And they all said, well, are you nuts? And I said, are you nuts? You like sleeping out here? You like doing this? And so I put my name in, okay, and I didn't hear much. And then we were sent out to a place called LZ Defiance. And first, the tank units were there, and every, so many yards there was another tank. It was a small area, and we were sent there to mine sweep as they patrolled. And yeah, we'd find a lot of mines. Okay, they weren't hard to find because they buried them at night. So in the daylight, you could see where the ground had been disturbed. We never missed one. And they were round, about like so, round with a big nipple on the top for anti-tanks. And we dig them out and put them in an APC behind us. And we always clean them out. We never hit them. And we sweep. And I hated sweeping I wasn't too afraid of an ambush because these are tanks. That goofy guy up there on top of that tank on that 50 with that big Ho Chi, well, you're going to ambush a tank column for Christ's sake. So I wasn't worried about that. It was just the heat and the sweeping. And there were three of us, and every so many feet, one guy with an M16, and then another guy out further with an M16, and the guy out further with a headset sweeping for mines. And we'd rotate every 15 minutes. And LZ Defiance, it was right on the border, and a lot of B-52s had come through there, and it was part of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And a lot of their markers where they check had been blown out, so you could hear activity, and they started to do what we call mad minutes. And during the period, some in the evening, you'll get a call, the tank commander, well, only 50s, and they'll just, for 1 minute, fire into the dark. Might be M16, it might be M79s, it might be the M60 machine gun, something, M79 grenade launchers. It'd only be one weapon. Indiscriminately, mad minute, keep the enemy off balance. And it must have been about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm awake, I can't sleep. And I'm talking to a friend, and in fact, it's quiet night. It's pitch black. There's no light. And all of a sudden we heard and we looked, and probably 50 yards out, an NVA soldier had hit our trip flares. And it lit here, and it lit here, and it just lit them up. And, it was like slow, it was surreal, because we all seen him, and he was like stunned. He was realizing what had happened. He had bumped into our line, and he was totally lit up. And it was like we all shot about the same time. And it probably happened like this fast, but it didn't seem like it. And, the man was dead before he hit the ground. And then they go out, and everything gets pitch black again. And we'll wait for the sun to come up again, and we'll go out there and see what we got. And he was definitely dead. He didn't have anything on him. We figured he must have got lost. He didn't have a rifle on him. He would just stumble around. Didn't even have a rifle. Just trying to find his unit. And then a chopper came in, two, to pick up our guys and take us back to Song Bay. I was glad to get out of LZ Defiance. I was just glad to get out of there. During the day, where the B-52s, it was still smoldering, and it was hot, and you could see the heat waves and the smoke, and it was like a trip to hell.
Could you hear or feel the blasts from B-52s when they bombed an area?
Oh yeah. Well, if they're far enough away, you could hear that boom, 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 boom. Okay. B-52 was pretty awesome. I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end. Sent us back to Song Bay, and we wondered why we're here. And our major said, well, the water truck goes down about 3 miles in the bend in this river, and they're pumping water out and distilling it so we have water. Okay, and somebody's taking pot shots at them up in that ridge, and they don't want to go unless they get some protection. And so they drew our guys back and said, tomorrow morning, go on up there, get up in that ridge, catch that guy coming in, okay, if you can. Take care of it. No, that was great, better than LZ Defiance. So we ended up there, and it was getting light, and we crossed this little river in the bend and went up in the ridge, and one guy drops off, and another guy drops off, and there was kind of an open meadow area coming up. And I looked, I'm a deer hunter, and I could see something had come up here, probably an animal, but I wasn't sure. And it teed where this huge tree had been struck by lightning years ago, in a big old hollow area inside, and all the big leaves had grown over it. And I took my barrel and I looked in there. So I crawled in there, figuring I had the best spot. And I was all geeked, man. I was just really geeked. I figured I had the right spot. I'm going to watch him come up. He'll never going to see me. I'll wait until he's 10 feet away, and I'll put 2 rounds in his chest, And I'm claiming that rifle. I was all geeked. This is going to work out really well. I got the best spot. And then, 9 o'clock came, nothing. 10 o'clock came, it started to get hot. 11 o'clock, the bugs are on me from inside this tree, kicking them off me all the time. I'm listening. Birds are chirping, like, no, nobody's out there. He's on to us. He ain't coming up. He's not that stupid price, some doofus from that village down there. And about 2 o'clock, it got so miserable hot. And when we first got there, I noticed this old tree with the roots going into the bend in the river kind of hung over, and there was a long rope there. And I figured the village kids must get up on that ridge and swim. Boy, that sounded pretty good. Oh. I peek out, I see nothing. I step out, I see nothing. And I went and got the guys to see if they wanted to go for a swim. And they all agreed, so we all went out there and went up on this ridge, got this rope, and stripped buck naked. I was the first one. And there was a big knot at the end you'd sit on. And I sat in it and leaped, and it was a good ride, but there's a rock that came up. You had to lift your ass up, or you'd hit the rock. And then went out to the middle of the river, and I let myself go. Oh, felt great. A little muddy, but felt really great. And I'd swim and crawl up these big roots of this tree and go up, and next guy goes. And it's my turn again. And just as it was too late to stop, my eyes on the far bank picked up movement. My brain wasn't seeing a figure of a man, but there was movement there, but it wasn't picking up what it was. But I see movement, but it was too late, and I'm going down, and I'm looking at that far bank, and I lift my ass up so I didn't hit the rock. And as I went out and just got ready to let go, I seen it. It was like a huge body of a large anaconda, and a big old black point went into the water. Well, pretty soon I'm like this. And the water was about this far below my feet. And they're up there, they're saying, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" So there's a snake, a big fucking snake. And they start laughing. They say, "Well, we'll throw a concussion grenade. Don't worry about it." Some had 3-second fuses. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to have 5. And, you make you do the math. You're up there, 1, 2, don't throw nothing. And then they're laughing. They say, "Well, swim for it. We'll cover you." And about that time, I look below my feet, and top of the water starts to move. And I see this big head come up, and its mouth going with the teeth in. I looked into those eyes, those yellow eyes, and there's a difference between terror and fear. I felt terror go up my back. That snake might have a brain like that, but he communicated to me very clearly what the deal was. Very, very clearly. In fact, so clearly I almost lost my grip on the rope. And then the big head went down, and everything in my being says, "Climb." And I reached as high as I could, and I yanked myself up, and this thing came out of the water where my legs would have been. His mouth snapped about that far underneath my ass. He went back in. I look up on the ridge, and there was. I climbed straight up down there. By the time I got down there, they had their boots and everything on, and we went back up into that ridge until close to dark and came back. I guess my point in that story is it doesn't take the enemy to kill you. You can die from your own stupidity, and it's an environment that you're not necessarily on the top of the food chain and this stuff. And Song Bay was our little area where we come back, where we operated out of. And I remember Sunday morning we came back, and I was going to build this thing where we could shave. I got some wood and stuff, and It was Sunday morning about 10 o'clock, and I had the Stars and Stripes military magazine, you know, telling us how we're winning the war. And went in the shitter, and there was about eight holes cut there. Okay, I was probably in there half an hour. Did it stink? Oh, yeah, but I had nothing to do. Okay, so I'm reading, and I got done, and so I walk out, and I walk out of the shitter, and I walk maybe 2 steps down and walk up here about as far as that wall, and I look up, and I see these soldiers just dropping on, like they've been hit with nerve gas, just wham, hit the floor, and things seem to slow again. They slow, and you realize that they're hearing something that I'm not, and you realize it was probably one of these Russian 122s. They constantly harassed us.
Rockets.
Rockets. You know, Cambodia was 6 miles away. Rockets have ranges of 8 miles, and they tried always to hit the fuel depot right next to where we live, or that little airstrip. And you can't pick. My eyes never picked, but I knew it was between them and me, and I wasn't hearing it. And just about that time, the shitter blew up to pieces behind me. And I think the concussion landed, I fell flat on my ass. Wasn't hurt because I was lucky because the 122 Russian rocket, when it hits and blows. If that had been a 120 mortar, it would have been a different thing. And I got slides of it. I turned around, and I was amazed that it was just. And then they must have had a fuel line that ran underneath it, because that also started on fire. And, you know, you think, you know, if you spend another frickin' 10 seconds in there, 15 seconds, they'd be picking the shit out of your remains to send home. You know, and you think, wow, these little weird things tend to happen. And then about that time, same thing. About that time, about a week later, Phuc Vinh was getting some, there was a village, and it was every once in a while it'd be popping in there, and so they sent the infantry, and the South Vietnamese, they held up in their area. They were not interested in seeking anything out. Okay, and first cab went in there, and we got called because they start hitting booby traps. There was an old French rubber plantation, some old French homes, and so our squad was sent in there to take care of the booby traps. And when you're careful, we always carry these little half-pound blocks of TNT for that. We don't use C4 on that. Just these little blocks of TNT work pretty effectively. And we spent 3 days there. And first we brought a bulldozer in, because as you got into this old French rubber plantation, you know, that's where the infantry start hitting stuff as they went. So they brought in a bulldozer, and it took its blade down, and we were following that in until we could get into this meadow, and God, legs start coming up, and arms and stuff. And turned out to be a pauper's grave where they were buried there. So bulldozer backed up and covered them up and sat down, and then we marched in ourselves. And yeah, you know, you had to look. If you're not looking for it, that's when you don't see it. Okay, if you're looking for it, you can see the stuff that they're doing. And it must have been noon. We had covered a section of this rubber plantation here, and we're in the shade, and we're cooking some food and stuff. And behind us, where we just come from, we hear this bang. What the hell was that? And so we ran. We had a couple of tanks that gave us support and cover. Okay, so we're not exposed. And ran back there, and you could look at there, and I heard this moaning. And we went in there, my lieutenant, me, and a Kit Carson scout. A Kit Carson scout is a North Vietnamese soldier of Viet Cong that now works for us. Okay, they know a lot about booby traps. Okay, it's nice to have a Kit Carson scout with you. And we went in there, and here's this old Vietnamese farmer tapping these trees that haven't been tapped in a while, okay, because of the war, just trying to etch out a living. And he hit a anti-personnel mine, and he was moaning there. He was bleeding badly, and it had blown off the back of his heel and part of his foot. It had blown off. And so the lieutenant said, we got to get him out of here. Stamp down this stuff, which the stupidest thing he ever said. We're stamping down, and I hear a click, and everybody, the Kit Carson scout, started jabbering, and he took off. Lieutenant, they got the guy out, they took off. And they said, what are you going to do? I don't know. First time I started to cry. I started to cry. I couldn't believe this scenario had happened. And they called for a medevac. And I was waiting for the medevac before I lifted up my leg. Okay, I was going to wait until they had the meds there, right there, because I fully believe if I wasn't going to lose my life, I certainly couldn't lose one or two of both of my legs. And I cried. And then, they were maybe 50 yards away, and the rest of my group, they're just standing there staring. Lieutenant's just standing there staring. Kit Carson scout, they're just staring at me, waiting for me to make a decision on when this is going to happen. And I'm 20. This I can't believe this is happening. And then, sure enough, I knew decision time was coming closer, because I could hear this thump, 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 helicopter coming. And as it got closer, I'd look up and I could see it's a medevac. It's a medevac. And it came, and it sat down and just kept, and they're looking at me. And I said, okay, take a big breath. I think I'm going to count down from 10 to 1. Okay? Then I'm going to do this. 10, 9. Your heart is just, they're sweating. Got to 1 and I couldn't do it. I said, no, come on. No, they're not hassling me at all. They're just waiting. They're waiting because they know I can't do anything. Okay, let's try it again. I tried it again. Got down to 1 and I couldn't do it. And, your mouth is dry. Okay, let's do it. Count down from 5. 5, and I leaped to one side, and it didn't go off. And we found it, and it was, I wouldn't have blasted if it had gone off. It was that large. And took a little block of TNT and put it on there, and we blew it, and it left a hole this round, about this deep. And so even there, you think everything's under control, and then it's not. And then we went into Cambodia, where the U.S. invaded Cambodia in this early, I think it was March 1970.
Yeah.
Okay. And our units, we were ready to go in. I remember that day, got up early, hit this big area, and there was just a ton of helicopters coming. And it was like the more helicopters, and they slowly started to rise with troops, and prior to that too, a lot of new ammunition came in, and all that kind of stuff was starting to get stockpiled. And then we thought we were going into Cambodia, into their sanctuaries, but we weren't sure, but we thought so. But then as you could look behind the aircraft, and you'd see this long line like geese, and they got higher and higher, got about 6,000 feet in the air, and started to head towards the coast. Well, we're not going to Cambodia, we're heading towards the coast. And then they got above this cloud bank, and then you could look out front. Well, out there, the lead ship started to turn. We're going to Cambodia in their sanctuaries. And when we got there, we were not the first line in. When we got there, a chopper took us in, dropped us off on this little hill, and I remember looking, and there was like 8 body bags of GIs that had been killed. And the bags weren't dark. They were green, but they were kind of see-through. You could tell whether it was a black man or a white man. And being that on the hill, of course, their body fluids were moving to the end of the bag. And as we got off, and I noticed when we got on that there looked like there was blood and stuff on the, okay, but you sit down, let's go, let's do this. And then as we got off, they were piling bodies on, and their radio operator had been killed, and I was a radio operator for a squad. So the infantry grabbed me and took it, and it's got this big old thing hanging above you. It's not a good thing to have that. Okay.
Antenna.
Antenna up there. You know, it's just here I am. Okay, and but you do what you're told. And as we went into this, it's twilight under the jungle, even at the middle of the day, it's twilight. And I seen this first NBA body, and he was laying face down. And I wanted his shoes, his Ho Chi Minh shoes. And so I went to the body, and I grabbed his foot, and I was going to take them shoes. And lieutenant came up and said, "Don't you touch that body. Anything on that body is mine." Okay. And he went again. And I came back, didn't take the shoes, but I flipped him over. And he had been shot in the back, and he had bled a perfect heart on his chest. So I flipped him over, and I took that ammo carrier and put it in my pack. And we moved on. It started getting dark, and my team, we did stay together. I don't have to go on patrol. I don't have to do ambushes. I'm not in the infantry. Okay, I'll be your radio operator, but it's nighttime, pal. I'll do that. So I got back with my squad, and we found this pretty level area covered by kind of bushes and stuff, but it was kind of a clearing. And I said, this would be a good place for us to sleep tonight, you know. And so we went in there, and there's another dead NVA laying in there, okay. It's getting dark, you know, and everybody gets, "Oh, that's bad luck, man. That's bad luck. Can't sleep with a dead man. Come on, man. What are we going to do with him? Drag him out?" You know, the other GIs say, "What the fuck you doing, man?" So we got shovels, let's bury him here. So we did. We not very deep, but we dug in, covered the guy up. Okay. Then everybody felt more comfortable going to sleep. I used the guy as a pillow. I know. Words are different.
Yes.
You got to understand that. You change. It's different. You can't apply the values because there aren't any. Everything you've been taught is right is wrong. Everything that's wrong now is right. And then it was amazing, these caches. They're size of garages with tarps on them. And, you know, we rip them open, and I got an SKS still packed in Cosmoline. I got a CKS Chinese semi-bolt action. I got shit at home that I got out of this cache, and we just clean them out, and then we withdraw to a perimeter again. And you could hear them having trucks turning on, you know, trying to get this stuff out. And I think it was the third day, we started to find these holsters for 9mm. Okay, so we knew we were close to 9mm. That would be a thing that I'd want. Okay, and that third day we're coming back, and there's this opening, kind of a meadow, and they had it looked like 6 nice new Chinese green deuce and a halves trucks. And we went over there, and we just shot the shit out of them. In war, you can actually be the top vandalism, and you never have to worry about it. And we just shot the shit out of them, and then retired, and it started getting dark, and like I said, we didn't have to do any perimeter. And then they picked us up before, and they moved us to these 3 roads that came in, and we're going to set up a perimeter there, and the Air Force had knocked the shit out of all the buildings that there. And so we set up there, and it was nice. It was pleasant. And they were sitting there one night. And I never did get the pistol. But we're sitting there one night, and about 3 o'clock in the morning, this light went, poof, poof. Like God took a camera shot. About an hour later, same thing. Poof. And the next day, choppers came in, they start kicking off sandbags and stuff and more ammunition and stuff that we needed, because what that was a picture of the land, and then an hour later of the same land, and they had analyzed it, and they found a large North Vietnamese army units moving towards one of the three of us. It could be LZ Lee, LZ Betty, or our LZ, but because we covered each other with artillery, okay? But they definitely, and they had artillery pieces with them. And so they said, you guys can't sleep on the floor or on the ground anymore. You got to dig in, build yourself bunkers. This is what's going on. And so we did. And there was enough buildings blowing up where we took the wood and stuff and brought bunkers, sandbags up to here, and then put sandbags on. And there was room for three of us to fit in there. And we're waiting. We knew they were in the area. We're waiting. And where our unit was, that part of the perimeter, some valleys came in, and it wasn't too far for them to go. We had a lot of wire down. We had food gas. We had claymores all set up. It just, because I'm sitting there and I hear this whistle. Whack. First round came in from our artillery. What they do is they figure if they're going to get attacked, they're probably going to get attacked here. So they zero their guns in just over us, which makes you feel terrible, because why am I got to be on this particular section? Okay, and then just dark, they shut their guns off, so that if we need them and they're coming through there, all they got to do is fire. They'll be right on target. So first night, I'm nervous. I got the starlight scope. I'm young, and I remember thinking, now there's a stump there between that. That's just a stump. Well, I had 10 to 12, and guys pretty well were sleeping in their little areas, and I keep turning that on, and a starlight scope. It wasn't the best technology, but you could see shadows. And then fog came in, and fog comes in. I can't see. Then I can't. What a perfect night for it. And I swear to God, that stump was getting closer. And it wasn't, but your mind starts playing tricks on you. And finally, at midnight, I woke up. Next guy, he went, and I crawled in on an air mattress, kind of on a hill, and it started to rain. It started to pour. And pretty soon, being on the hill, of course, the back of our little bunkers start filling up with water, so your feet's doing this. And there was a Mexican further down. He started cussing in Mexican, and I took my flashlight, I looked, and the water was coming through, was hitting him. And then it hit again, then it hit me. Okay, but once you're wet, you're wet. You go to sleep. I went sound asleep, and I never knew what hit me. Felt like somebody came up and hit me with a ball bat across the head and kind of pushed me out of the bunker, but my arms I couldn't get off, and I'm tasting a lot of blood, and everybody's hustling to the perimeter, and I'm afraid that if we get overrun, all they're going to do is shoot me in the head, and I'm screaming, help me, help me, help me. And the soldier can't, because everybody's got to get on that perimeter. He came over and he flashed his light and said, oh, God, and left, which didn't make me feel very good. I figured half my head. Well, that wasn't the case, but head wounds bleed. Doesn't mean they're bad. They bleed. And I couldn't see out of my right eye, and I seen sparkles everywhere, and just tons of blood. And it was like an ice pick in my head because it was raining, and it was just hitting. And they didn't hit us. What they did is hit LZ Brown. Was the dumbest thing they ever did, because LZ Brown was totally flat, and they just frickin' slaughtered them suckers. And they got me, and they medevaced me out.
Well, what hit you? Was it a mortar, or do you not know?
I don't know if it was a round that came in. All I know is that whole thing collapsed and hit me in the head. Don't know. Okay. I was sound asleep, and I don't have a good idea what that was. I assumed it was, but I didn't. All right. So I ended up being medevaced out, but not right away. We had dug down underground. We had a med station, okay? But when they took me, and I wasn't the only one in there. There was like 2 other guys as well. And they had us on these cots that were about this high. And the water was about this high, was filling up with the rain, okay? And the doctor came around. His eyes were like this big. He looked like he had lost it. Literally, I looked at him, and his eyes were that big. And he puts a John be doing my arm and tapes it and moves on the next guy. And you know, it's raining now. It's light raining, and it's middle of the night. God bless these medevac. God bless them. I hear this. Boom, 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 boom. Medevac in the mountains, in the middle of the night, in a rainstorm. Mm-hmm. Come down. And they put me and these other two guys on the floor of the chopper, and then it started to rise, and I'm thinking, go, get it, you know, because we're vulnerable. If somebody has a B-40, it would blow us out of here. Go, climb. And climb. Pretty soon, we popped out on top of the cloud bank. And it was a beautiful, starry night, and headed towards Vietnam. And the first way station was there, and they brought us off there, and they looked at us. And, of course, he had missed my vein, so my arm was all puffed up. Mm-hmm. And they put one in here, sent me to the hospital there outside of Saigon. And I think I might have had, I don't know, maybe a nervous, but I don't know what it was. But I was in there, and I still had my boots and stuff on. And I was laying in this bed, and I had a knife in my boot. And I looked, and the nursing staff looked like Vietnamese. I took my knife out, and the next thing I know, these four gorillas in white comes around, disarm me like I'm a pussy, grabs me, throws me on my stomach, holds me down, rips my pants off, and I'm fighting it one more time, and I was asleep. Okay? And I woke up, and I was in this nut ward. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I'm thinking, oh, this is bizarre. And getting ready to be shipped to Japan, to the 249th General Hospital. And so went to Japan, and got there, and they gave me a cot. And I looked around, and it was different. Nothing was loose. Everything was firmly attached. And I asked if I could have my shaver, and they gave it to me. And I went into the bathroom, and oh wow, this is going easy, and never cut anything. They took the razor blade out. Okay, I think I know where I'm at. And came out, and initially I could not speak. I tried, just couldn't speak. Okay, it wasn't coming. It was weird. The weirdest thing I ever experienced. Could not speak. And but there was this guy from the 101st Airborne, and he had his pajamas on and bloused combat boots, and he had this record called Leapy Lee, Little Arrows, and he'd play it, and he'd play it, and he'd play it. I'm thinking, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm either going to stuff that up your ass, or that's not going to play anymore. And so I took it and I broke it, and dropped it on one, and waited to see what he was going to do. And he didn't come after me. He started chirping and jumping up and down on his cot, jumping up and down on his cot. And I got up, and I was going to hit the fucker in the face. And here's these guys again. They grabbed me and boom, take me away, and we talked. And at that time, I had gotten my voice back, and I said, I don't belong here. Well, you're going back to the States. Good. Great. Then the Army doctors came down and says, you look like you're fit for duty. Well, no, I'm going back to the States. You go back to the States. You got 13 months left. We'll re-levy you for another year. Or this is what we can do. We'll let you go home for a month, see your family. We'll let you out 5 months early. You can get any unit you want. It's okay. I did that. I went home for a month, found love, went to my doctor, and had him take out my tonsils. That got me another month. Mm-hmm. And then I went back to him and said, take out my appendix. And he said, I'm not going to do that. Your tonsils need to be taken out, your appendix don't. I've done everything I can for you. And So I ended up going back. And when I got back, I was arrested for being AWOL because they never got the doc's instructions that extra month. And then they just shipped me out to my old unit. Well, my old unit was back in the field, and my old commander, I got back there. But first I was at Tonsanute Air Base waiting for a helicopter ride, and here's the old supply sergeant. And say, hey, how you doing? You're supposed to pack my shit up and send it home. Mm-hmm. And instead, he said, wow, we never thought you'd be back. I said, yeah. He said, look at some of this stuff. And the doofus pulls out this ammo carrier that I'd taken off that dead NVA with a perfect carrier. He said, look at this shit. That's my shit. You fucker. I didn't care about that. I wanted my rifles. I said, where are my rifles? He says, your rifles, I think the commander took those rifles and gave them to some higher ranking people in Saigon. We never figured you'd be back. Mm-hmm. Well, boom. I get up there, and I says, my unit I picked was the 227th Charlie Company. That was the deal. That's why I'm back here. I'm going to be a door gunner. I'm not going on the ground anymore. He said, listen, we lost some people. You draw your pack, you draw a rifle, and you be on that frickin' helipad tomorrow morning. You're going down to a place called LZ. God, I forget what it was. And so, yeah, they took me in there, and these guys were digging in the side of the hill. They were doing strafing below the hill, and they were working with Bangalore torpedoes, and the bottom of the hill fires had started, so they're working their way up towards the torpedoes. And it's just a bad situation. None of those guys liked it. It wasn't an area I wanted to stay in. This is not the deal I made. Mm-hmm. And then just before dark, I see this chopper coming in really fast. And as he came in, I dropped everything. And as they were kicking mail and stuff off to one side, I crawled in on the other side. And the gunners looked at me, and they don't give a fuck. Pilots didn't know about it. And they went back, and they had to stop in Song Bay, my old unit, to refuel. And so when they stopped, I slid off, and I went into a perimeter and fell asleep on top of a bunker. I had 2 grenades here. It's kind of funny because I woke up in the morning, and the grenades had rolled off, but there was a big rat curled up, sleeping up. And these rats, you left them alone. It's almost like, oh, you're getting up now? You got up and walked away. And I waited to get the next ride. I kept saying, where are you going? Where are you going? Saigon, can I get a ride? Yeah, get on. I went to I think he called the Adjutant General. He takes care of us. I didn't go to my commander. Didn't use the chain of command, went right to the Adjutant General, and I explained, told him the whole story. He said, you go back to your unit, and I'll look into this. Okay, right. So I go back to the unit. Of course, my commander was absolutely irate that I went over his head. Absolutely irate. He said, draw a pack, draw a rifle, and be on the helipad. And he brought me up to a mountain called Muibara. And the NBA had dressed up in South Vietnamese, and there's only one way. It was a communication center up there. One way there, otherwise it was just sheer drop-off. And there was, I think, a couple of GIs were killed, but I was one of their replacements. And the NVA did not get up there. They didn't get up there, but there was some casualties. So, and that was good duty. I went up there. We were on top of the mountain. I'd see jets go high level, and clouds would drift by. And there was Song Bay underneath there. We could see them Russian 122 rockets coming in at night. They had this little tail hitting that airstrip, and we're safe up here. And it was about 2 weeks. It was nice. And then, boom, chopper came in and asked for me, and I got on the aircraft, and it's just leveled on this ledge. And it just tilted the helicopter and just fell. And I almost crapped my pants, and then right on back there. And sat down and went into my commander's unit. And he said, apparently, he says, I can't go home until you're satisfied. And he said, what's going to make you satisfied? I said, I had a Russian SKS still packed in cosmoline that you gave away, sucking ass in Saigon. And he tried to intimidate me. He's a commander. Just stop it. Just fucking stop it. And he said, what's going to make you happy? I said, that 9mm you got out of Cambodia will make me happy. He said, I'm not going to give you that fucking revolver. I'm not going to do it. I said, then you ain't going home, are ya? That's going to make me happy, is that 9mm there. You gave away my 2 rifles. I want your 9mm. Then he got real quiet and real nice. Just listen. I just want to go. I don't want to give you the 9mm. But I'll tell you what I can do. I've got a British 303 that was taken. Will you take that? We sat there and stared at each other, and I said, yes. Gave it to me. He said, you're also leaving here. You're going to the 227th Charlie Company, Ghost Riders. Good luck. And I went there. And when I got there, you know, I've been in country a long time, man, and it's like, it's a net, these gunners are like real close. And when I first got there, they looked at me and said, well, do you smoke or drink? What is this, a trick question? Smoke. Flight 1, which were all potheads. Flight 2 was all drinkers. And so I went in there, and they said, listen, we can't, you're going to have to sleep down at the end on this 4x8 plywood. It's up off the ground, and we'll get you all settled tomorrow, okay? Okay. And so I met these guys. We're talking, getting to know each other. And about 2:30 in the morning, I took my boots off. I never wore socks or underwear, and the boots were real soft. And even in the field, I'd use them as a pillow. So I took my boots off and wrapped one of my T-shirts around them, crawled up on this 4x8 piece of plywood. And I'm sitting there, and I look up, and I see in the rafters, I see rats. Yeah, I see rats. Yeah. And I started going to sleep, and I felt something on my toes. And I took my flashlight, and here are these 3 rats chewing on my toenails. Freaked me out. It just freaked me out. And I hit it, and they screamed and hustled away, and they kept coming all night long. I got my insect repellent, and I'd wait until they got to my toes. I'd spray them in the eyes, and they'd scream, and this went on all night. Well, it was an initiation. This is where they put some marijuana and stuff to keep the rats on that side of the building. The rats were simply coming to their feeding area, is all they were doing. Very funny, guys. Very funny. They said, you're in the first room on the right. Okay, right? So I walk in there. There's a bunk bed. Okay. But it's painted white, and it's got these black fists on it, like this. It has some very nasty things about white people. Honkies. So who's my new roommate? And then I meet him. He comes in. And he, big guy, bigger than me. He was a big black guy. And he really never said much. He hated me because I was white, and now he had to live with me. And he said, listen, I'm sleeping low. You're sleeping high. So I said, well, fine. And so went up there. But the problem with him is he had this 8-track, Marvin Gaye. I can't stand the song today. Heard it by the grapevine. And with an 8-track back then, you put it in, it just plays and plays and plays and plays and plays. Just plays and plays and plays. Well, then this thing started between us. You know, every time he got up before I did, he'd put it in. I'd get up and pull it out. At night before he'd go to bed, he'd put it in. I'd climb down, pull it out. This went on for about a week. We got to change the dynamic here. I am sick of this. He left one morning. I pulled it out, and I took my boot, and I smashed it on the cement floor. And left. Went out to my aircraft. I'm sitting in the gunner's well. M60, not loaded. I'm sitting in the gunner's well. And I look, and here comes this dude around the building. He has found Marvin Gaye. I am the obvious suspect, and he is pissed off. And he started coming towards me, and as he came towards me, he pulls a knife out of his boot. And I'm thinking, you dumb motherfucker. And I put the round of ammunition in my M60, and I load that sucker. I brought that barrel down on his chest. And every M60, the pressure point to firing is different. You get to know your weapon, okay? Some fire right away. Some you got to pull back, and then they fire, okay? Mine, you had to kind of pull back a little bit, how I liked it set. And I start squeezing that trigger, and he got probably from here to that wall away, and it was right there. I would have killed him. He would have killed me. I can't. Guy's too powerful. He'd kill me, and I wasn't going to take the chance. I would have killed him, and it was right there, and I decided I'm going to do this. And he stops. He looks at me, and he knew I would do this. And he takes the knife, and he puts it back in his boot, and he looks at it and gives me a smile and says, "You got to sleep sometime." Turns around and walks away. And I'm thinking, you dumb fuck, why don't you just leave his Marvin Gaye thing alone? Why don't you just leave his frickin' Marvin Gaye thing alone? And for the rest of the day, I'm always looking behind me and stuff. Where is this sucker? Am I going to go around the building? Hey, pal, how you doing? And but he's right. I got sleep. And he'll cut my throat in the night. What do you do? Wish you'd thought of this before. Well, now what are you going to do? And I went to my commander and just told him what happened. I said, I'm scared for my life. And what they did was that nobody wanted to live with this guy. This guy intimidated the door gunners, for crying out. He intimidated them all. This was one nasty motherfucker. Okay? And I told him what's going to happen. And boom, they went, took him out, got his stuff, put him on an aircraft. He was gone. And then I got this room all to myself. I was the new gunner with a room all to himself. I did a little redecorating and painting. Okay, and that's how I started to be a door gunner. And as the time went by, I remember one morning. It was a Sunday morning that the U.S. Army had heard, and I knew this after the fact, that the NVA had put in a large military unit, and where would somebody hide that many men and equipment? The jungle, okay, but this rubber plantation called the Chup rubber plantation, it's a French rubber plantation. You can't see it from the top, and it's clear on the bottom. Perfect place to bivouac, lots of men and hide lots of men. And so they figured that being that we were in the triangle, we patrolled the triangle, and that's where the Ho Chi Minh Trail mouth came in, that the Chup might be the spot. Now, I didn't know this. The pilots didn't say, hey, it's a beautiful Sunday morning, let's go see if we can find some trouble. They just didn't tell me what we were going to do. So we lifted off, and sure enough, we went up and headed towards the Cambodian border, which wasn't unusual. But then we start gaining altitude, a lot of altitude. 5,000 feet. We're used to 5,000 feet, 85 knots, which is about 105 miles an hour cruising. That's what we did. You may look like that helicopter stationary, but we're moving. That's why most of the shots go way behind our tail. 5,000 feet is pretty safe. Small arms fire, forget it. Anything bigger, watch out. But we kept going higher. And it got cold. I remember it got so cold. And I was on the right side, I was the right side gunner, and I looked out, because we took our doors off and stuff. And I looked, in the distance, I could see this beautiful green area, like God had a yard, and it was a manicured, beautiful, shimmering green that Sunday morning. And we kept getting higher. And I'm thinking, why are we going so high? We never go this high. It's cold. And we kept climbing as we got towards the Chup rubber plantation. Kept climbing higher and higher. And I thought, well, everything's pretty safe. So I dialed into Saigon, my headset. There's only one radio station, Saigon, okay. There wasn't a lot of choice. But it was a good rock and roll station. And I dial in, and it's Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. And I cranked that sucker up, and I leaned back in my gunner's well, and we're way up in here. And just where that guitar pick starts, I hear this beep. I never heard that before. Ever? Wonder what beep. Well, if I had known what was happening, I would have had a seatbelt on. And what it was that we've been picked up we found them, and they have an anti-aircraft gun we've been locked on. And by the third beat, it'll blow you out of the air, or you got to be falling. They shut the aircraft off. And all of a sudden, there was no gravity. And that bird slowly went on its side, my side, and I floated to the ceiling. Now, I had a 50 caliber. I could have engaged that 51. I couldn't get down to that gun. It was an invisible hand. There was no gravity. I was plastered right there, just going down towards the ground. Oh, yeah, I could see where it was in those trees. Oh, yeah, because there was these clumps of green going, just missing us. That gun, we're falling, here's that gun trying to catch us. And I'm thinking, the ground's coming up. I thought to myself again, Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I thought, well, you won't feel a thing. You won't feel a thing. You won't feel a thing. And it's coming up. If they slow the aircraft, we're fucked. If they don't slow the aircraft, we're fucked. We're done. We're done. And it was okay. It was okay. And then an amazing thing happened. As we're getting closer to the horizon, the tops of those trees looked like God took a lawnmower and went, because they just started splintering everywhere. And I'm watching this. And I'm thinking, holy shit. And then all of a sudden, it stopped. Because now they were just shooting the tops of the trees, not at us anymore. The pilots, when they righted the aircraft, I fell hard. I mean, I fell on this piece of steel plate, and I was amazed how, when they went like that, how hard I hit. And I fell back like this, and that's the only time that it had to happen, because I don't know what caliber it was. Came right through the floor, right between my legs, through the top, and hit a blade. I didn't even know it till later. The Army, well, I'll tell you. And the blades were going whack, whack. I'm thinking, we're going to tear the blades. But I could feel the aircraft starting to slow. And that noise, that M8, whack. Those blades were taking stress. And I think, oh, they're going to rip, they're going to rip, they're going to rip. And then I looked down. I've never seen so many NVA in my life, and they're all like this. And I'm thinking, holy shit. And I look at the steel plate underneath me, and it's moving. But I'm looking at the floor of the aircraft, and an amazing thing, it's like holes just materializing, okay? And they were hitting us all over the place. And I thought, well, I started to scream. I got on that 50, and I just started firing. And I'm screaming, and I'm firing, and I'm screaming. I'm not even aiming at anything. It was a target rich. I figured I had to hit something. And I'm just screaming, and I'm firing, and I'm screaming, and I'm firing. I hear the other gunner doing the same thing, firing, and they spun our aircraft out. And ways away, the South Vietnamese were moving up to engage at that time. And we set that aircraft down. I got out, got the pilots out, because they can't get out without your help. Snapped his door, unsnapped his harness, took the steel plate so he could get out. And we're all sitting there, and we're looking, and the bird is just shot up. Both pilots were fine. I was fine. The other gunner was fine. Of course, he should have been, because he was facing God. I was facing down during that time. He was probably hanging on for dear life, or he'd float out of the aircraft. And that was in the Stars and Stripes, okay? And bird came in to pick up our air crew. Another bird came in to lift, because they didn't dare fly it. Brought it back to Phuc Vinh. And I went into my place where I sleep, and I'm sitting on my bed. My hands are just shaking, just shaking. And he came in and said, "Did you see your gunners well?" And, "What?" He said, "Come out here, take a look at this." And they had this lead wire that they put up where the bullet came, and through with a hole above my head and out where it had hit the blade. And if I had been anywhere on that gun, it would have killed me instantly. And the only time I wasn't was when they right it, because sideways they're not going to hit the floor. It had a right. And I think the only time that could have happened without killing me was when we hit hard and I fell back. Because after that, I was on the gun. And I think that millisecond, good luck. It's just good luck. Just good luck. And that was in the Stars and Stripes, in fact. That aircraft shot full of holes. They had a picture of it. But we got a different aircraft. And it wasn't that long after that was we had to bring a black lieutenant into the mountains to an infantry unit.
Okay. We need to take a break here for a moment. Just switch the mic off. All right. So you were talking about having to take a black lieutenant someplace?
Yes, and we did a lot of these types of missions, but before I want to go back, because we were always told as door gunners that, guys, if you're taken prisoner, they're going to fucking shoot your ass. Just like they would a sniper. You're not going to make it. Only pilots are taken prisoner. Okay? So I had come up with a plan B, and the plan B was to put warrant officer pins I got from one of the pilots and put them in my pocket. And the idea that if we're shot down, I can take those pins out and I'm going to snap them on my collar and I will just become an officer and maybe get by those frontline troops that have been waiting so long to get their hands around my throat. But I also thought, typical Army, they're going to spend this bullshit so you fight to the death because you don't want to be executed, okay? It's a bunch of bullshit. And then we're on patrol one time, and we hear this, Fook, mayday, mayday, Fook. That's it. And the radio starts to crack on. I'm listening what's going on, and they directed our ship where it last went down. They go over there. Here we go. And they feel the aircraft. They change direction fast, as fast as we could. It still took time to get there. And when we sit down, we could see the aircraft. It had been shot down. And it had been shot up really bad. I think they shot it up after it was on the ground and wiped shit all over it. They just fucked it up real good. And nobody was there. And we're looking around, and first you go make the circle. Okay, you want to make this circle. You don't want to land. You want to make this circle. Okay, and you look in, as a door gunner, we're right above the trees. I can see everything. I can see everything that moves, man. Anything fucking moves is going to get a hole in it, and you tighten until you're comfortable sitting down. And pilots were gone, and I looked, and there were these two lumps in the field. So I ran over there, and sure enough, there was these two gunners. And they had their hands not tied, but wired, okay, behind them. And it looks like they were set on their knees, shot in the back of the head. Both of them were face down. So we recovered those bodies, okay, and left. And then after that, I always kept them pins. I did not want to go like that. But then some nightmares started too. I used to have a nightmare. I'm down there, and I'm looking at Ken Hoff, the other gunner. And I see footsteps, and bang. Then I feel those footsteps behind me. I wake up. Just stupid shit like that. It's just stupid shit like that. Anyway, we had to take this black lieutenant. And, we have to leave in the morning because the monsoon season is starting. When the monsoon season starts, you'll see a cloud bank in the distance. And then it'll be there. It's gone. The next thing, it's gone. And then it's gone. And then it's over you. And it rains like hell. Okay? Where we were going, the monsoon was starting. We had to leave in the morning before the cloud bank came up over the mountains. That's how we lose air crews. Mountains. Not from the enemy necessarily. It's from colliding with shit.
Right.
And sure enough, fucking guy gets there at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I can already see this doesn't feel right. I get this really bad feeling about this whole thing, and I was getting pretty superstitious at that point. I'd been there a long time, and I was getting superstitious. And our aircraft, which was a good aircraft, 428, was a strong aircraft. We lifted off with this guy, and we always, when we went up, we usually looked for what we call stairway to heaven. There were big lights coming through the clouds, and a big one was like God's gold, and then pilots flew up into it, and I'm looking over the edge of it, and I could see everything just close. And then felt it going. As far as you could see, it was nothing but white cotton batting, as far as the eye could see. We started in that direction, and we're probably about 20 minutes into the flight, and I look, and amazing. There was this Alice in Wonderland mushroom cat, big as buildings, above, so there was a storm below. It was huge. Some of these stems were the size of homes, and they had big caps. We were like that small. And I'm going through it, and I had my camera. I never took a picture. And he's maneuvering through it. I'm looking at it. I never felt so small, but I was amazed at the beauty of this. And he'd go right through a stem. You couldn't even see your hand. We pop out the other side and keep going. It was amazing. And then that forest of mushrooms was behind us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, hey, that was very cool. That's why I'm here, just to experience that right there. And another 20 minutes or so, and I'm looking over the side of the aircraft. It don't look good. I don't know where the mountains are. I have no idea how these pilots are going to know where the mountains are. Okay, I'm figuring we'll turn around, we'll come back with this jerk off tomorrow. Okay, let's not do anything stupid. And then my headset starts to crackle. I'm listening. Well, we made contact. They are down below us somewhere. Mm-hmm. But where? Oh, well, we'll come back tomorrow. And the pilots come on and says, hang on, we're going down. Going down? Are you out of your fucking mind? Are you out of your fucking mind? I'm along for the ride. Mom, beam me out of here, will you? You can't. You're along. This is it, man. You're totally out of control what's going to happen. And considering that you got two pilots that are probably 21 years old, you know, and so they started this circle, and we started a circle, and I'm watching this thick pea soup come up. I can't even see my hand. And we're down, can't see nothing. It's like you're in pea soup. And I'm getting like, we're going to fucking die. We're going to fucking die. Where are the mountains? Where are you? And we're moving down. And all of a sudden, what had happened is the mountain was here, and we were coming down, and a wind shear grabbed our blades. And it turned the helicopter, my face down, and just hurled us towards the ground. And no gravity, bang, I went up to the ceiling again. And all I can see is this gray pus hitting me in the face. And I'm thinking, keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open. It won't hurt. It won't hurt. It'll be quick. It'll be quick. It will be quick. And I'm waiting for my death. Meanwhile, that guy, he's just screaming his head off. He's just screaming and screaming. And I remember thinking to myself, shut up, die like a man, just shut up. You know, and he's screaming, poor guy, you know. And I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And the pilots got back control, and we popped out of that cloud bank, but we were level, and the ground was really close. And boom, we hit it level, and those blades went boom, boom. I got out, immediately opened the door, unsnapped his harness, moved that steel plate away so he could get out. The other gunner does the same. Mm-hmm. We're sitting in front of the aircraft, all of us. One of the pilots has his hands on the nose of the aircraft saying, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. And he just kept saying this over and Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. So I knew it was close. Mm-hmm. And then I look, and I see this poor black guy, he's full of barf. Barfed all over himself, barfed on the other gunner, okay, because the wind blew it. And he gets up. He tries to walk. He can't walk. He's so terrorized, his legs give out, and he falls. And then I see movement in the trees. And my heart starts to race. And I reach in my pocket for those pins. And I rush back to that. I had a 50. I rushed back to that 50. And it was U.S. troops. And they just blended right out of the jungle. Mm-hmm. They came on, picked up this poor fucker, which I was still having a hard time walking. Mm-hmm. I wish I'd gotten his name and number. I'd love to call him today. I would love to call him today and say, hey, Jerry, don't ever call me again. Okay, one of those deals. And they came in, and our AC, our aircraft commander, was talking to their lieutenant, I guess, and they said, we got to move. You either come with us now or leave. Pilots got back in the aircraft, and we snapped them in and stuff, and they brought the aircraft up about this high off the ground, and we're just sitting outside on the skids, and the aircraft seemed okay, you know, just floating. set it back down, and I could hear the command, we're leaving, hang on. And they did what they call a hammerhead. Okay, a hammerhead, you're not supposed to, it's very hard on the aircraft, but what it is they get that blades really, really moving, and then they take the collective and they pull it up, which immediately grabs air, and you just fly. Right? And hang on, and I could see, I knew that what they were going to do. This is going to be a fun ride, man. I leaned back in my gunner's room, wait for the ride, and sure enough, we shot off that ground. And we just went through this pea soup. I mean, it was a great ride, man. It was a great ride. And we, boom, popped out of the top and went maybe a couple thousand yards up in the air, and then the aircraft started to choke and started to fall. And the pilots they got it, and it got it running again, and it just settled in a little bit, and we went home. And I'd love to have known that, or that black guy, today, I like to call him. And the only other thing, as I was getting close, they moved our units to the coast from the triangle, and that's when U.S. was moving out. So we took over for another helicopter unit that went north to the DMZ. So we took over their area. And I was getting short at that time. I maybe had 2 more months left, and I was finally going home. My nerves were shot. And at that time, we were doing a lot of heroin, gunners were. We were doing a lot of heroin. And I remember coming out of this room, and everybody take a pee right there, a little 2-foot side. Everybody take a pee there. And I came out of the room, and it's like I passed out. I went black, face down in this stuff. I don't know how long I was there. It couldn't have been too long. Somebody would follow me. Woke up, took a shower. We had these big container barrels that would heat up. The sun would heat up in the morning and during the day. And I washed up. I'd never blacked out before. Okay, I didn't worry about it too much. 2 months to go, you know. And then one day, we had to go. They took our bird 428 and said, you got to go to a place called Dalat. Go up there. And I don't know why we were going to Dalat. The pilots didn't let us know. We were going to Dalat. It was up in the mountains. And the only way to get there was through what we call the Soup Me Pass. And they said, this is the only way we can get up through here. So stay on your toes, okay? We're leaving. So, okay? So we left, and we took off. We started to gain some altitude, and I looked in front of the bird, and sure enough, kind of opened up, and that must be the pass. And it was. And they went, and we went up, and we were going, and you could look down, and way down there, you could see a little blue ribbon, which was a river. And we came past this sheer mountain. It's like God took a saw and cut this mountain sheer, and it was black, just beautiful black, so close. And, of course, with that, there's a lot of turbulence that comes up next to that. And it seemed like we're from here to that wall away, the blades, you know, and like I could almost, it was so massive, and we were so high, like I could almost touch it. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, the aircraft is moving back and forth, because, you know, I'm thinking, get the fuck away from the side of the mountain, dudes. You know, you don't have to fly this. We got plenty of sky. I remember thinking it to myself. Sitting back, and it's like everything went black. Not right away. I seen this balls, everything went black. And I fell forward, and I went outside the aircraft. And I went into the gun, and the triggers caught me underneath my chin. As soon as I broke that barrier that high, it was cold, and the wind was great. And it's like when I hit, bang, my arms went around, but I was awake and I hung on, or it would have been a long death, a long way down, plenty of time to think about it. I'm hanging on for dear life. My communications snapped. I'm screaming. Pilots can't hear me. They're just, you know, back of their heads. Oh, that's okay, dude. The back of their heads are just, you know, they don't hear me. The other gunner's on the other side of the turbine. You don't hear me. I'm screaming and screaming. I'm looking down. My legs are flying in the air. It's 105 miles an hour. And I'm hanging on for dear life, and I'm looking, and it's so far down. And about that time, I see the cotter pin that holds the gun in its mount doing this. And all I can think is that it goes, and me and the gunner are going to watch the bottom of that aircraft get smaller and smaller and smaller. And what will they think happened? He went nuts. He took his gun and jumped. But that wasn't the truth. You know, they'd never really know the truth. And I'm hanging on, but at the tip of a barrel, there's a piece of steel for a firing pin, okay? And my boot was able to get on that, and I was able to swing back in. I put the seatbelt on right away. And it's cold up there. I'm sweating. I'm just shaking, just shaking. And then we finally got to the lot. It was it's like a university town. I couldn't believe it. We came up over the trees, and I'm looking at all these red brick buildings and these ponds and green and sidewalks. It's like is this a Twilight Zone? It's totally unscratched by the war. It's a beautiful university town, the lot. And it was gorgeous. And they sat down, and they said, "We're going to have a good time tonight, boys." I said, "I am not interested." I told them what happened. They laughed about it. "Okay, do what you want to do." "I'm staying here at the Bird." "Okay, you stay here at the Bird." I slept on the floor of the Bird. It's not a comfortable sleep because the floor of a Bird has all these little steel nipples. Okay, they're not comfortable to sleep, and neither is that chair or that. And I slept there that night, and then they came back. Yeah, they were treated very, very well, and we lifted off, and we went back through the Sukmi Pass. But this time I kept the seatbelt on. I was very scared this is going to happen again. If it does, I'm not going to be so lucky. I will not be so lucky next time. And as soon as I got back to the unit, we set the Bird down. My job as a right side gunner was to take the two M60 machine guns, break them down, clean them up, and get them ready, oil them for the next day. You know, the crew chief, and I had to keep the glass underneath the pilot's feet clean too, so they could see how close the ground was when we were landing. That was really all I had to do. The Charlie Pop, or the crew chief, he'd have to take oil samples from underneath to see if there's fine metal shavings. Didn't want the transmission to seize up, and go over certain safety things on the aircraft every time. So my job was pretty easy. I'd take the M60, break them down, clean them up, put them back together, get ready for the next day. And I went to the doctor, Cooper. Well, Cooper and me were good friends, and we smoked a lot of pot together. He made a bowl surgical equipment, okay? And when they moved us to the coast, we were part of the Korean White Horse Division at that time. There was only 150 of us, okay? And they treated us like we were special. For the first time, the Koreans had helicopters to get their wounded out. Helicopters to bring them in, okay? They were good troops. And I went to Coop, and I said, "This is what's happened." I said, 2 months, I'm out of here. If this happens again, I ain't going to be so lucky. My nerves are shot. I've done my part. And he said, "You know what? You think you got mono?" I do. He said, "I'm going to take you off flight status." And we all contributed a couple bucks each, $300 total. And we rented our own little whorehouse in a town called Ninhua. Okay. Well, Doc had to go there almost every day to check the girls. Okay. And he put me in the back of the same car that you see on MASH, the ambulance, same type car. And he put me in the back. And then we go through these Korean checkpoints. And then I come up in the front, and we'd be smoking marijuana all the way down to the Ninhua whorehouse. Okay. They'd let us in, close the gate, and it had tall walls and barbed wire all the way around the compound, and a house in there. And we'd go in there, and I always enjoyed being with this French Vietnamese, very pretty, and I always just took her. There were 6 or 7 you could choose from, $5. I thought the price was pretty reasonable. You know, so we'd go there together, and that's basically what I did. But even as a door gunner, that year 10 months I was a door gunner, I think we were unique in the respect that our commander allowed women into us. The cooks didn't get these privileges. Okay, no mechanics didn't get these privileges. Nobody did, but gunners and pilots, and that was $5. But there was never more than 4 gunners and 4 pilots at any point not flying. One was on standby in case we needed them. The other one was down. They didn't have to fly. So you always had those 2 birds down. So you had 4 gunners. We played cards. We had the girl down. it was okay, but there was a lot of pilots. They were married. They had nothing to do with it. There was other soldiers. "Nah, I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm married. And I wouldn't do that." I was one that said, "I'm good with this." You know, so that was kind of a special thing. So anyway, I started going there with him all the time, and things started to disappear. I had some stuff stolen. You don't want to do that with gunners. You just don't want to do that. And I remember, and it was a black guy, and we would smoke it or we'd snort it, but we never used needles. He was using needles, and I remember we'd be sitting in the group. What was his name? I don't remember anymore. But he would literally be sitting there. He'd be drooling on himself, and he'd piss his pants. We'd say, "Jesus, come on, come on!" Like we're better than that. Yeah, right. Okay, you're no better than that. He's just hardcore. And what he was doing was he was stealing from different gunners to get to him. But it wasn't hard to find this stuff. Okay, and guys found out about it, and he barricaded himself into his little room, and wouldn't come out. And there was gunners that would certainly have killed him, and they would go up to the door all the time and, "Hey, Jerry, come on out. We want to talk to you. Come on out, man." You know, and harass this man. 3 days he didn't come out. 4 days he didn't come out. And I passed his door one time, and I could hear inside him moaning like he's in a lot of pain. And, you know, something had the dynamic had to change here, okay? And so, unbeknown to any of the guys that I live with, I went up on the hill there, and I talked to the doctor. I says, "Hey, cool, here's what's going on. I don't know what's going on, but he's moaning and something's going on. And if he goes out, especially at night, these guys are going to kill him, or they're going to hurt him so bad. You know, they're pissed. And do something." And so he came down with a couple of officers and pilots and knocked on the door, and the guy let him in, and they took him up to the med station up where his little area there. I know, because I was watching some of them gunners, and they were just staring at him as he walked by. "See you a little later," you know, type of stuff. You know, and later they wouldn't let him come back down. They took him. They had these houses on the coast for drug addicts, and they took him down there, I assume, to get him cleaned up before he goes home. And Coop talked to me later. He said, "Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Les." He said, "You know what I had to do?" And no. Well, the man was impacted. He hadn't taken a crap in so long. He became impacted. Now he couldn't. And he could have died. And he said, "You know how?" I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "I had to take a glove and I had to dig it out." I said, "Sorry, Coop."
Now, were the men of the unit hostile toward him because he sort of crossed a line?
Oh, he crossed the line. And it wasn't used to be that way, but once you find a thief among you, and especially with these guys, I mean, they're a different breed of cat. These gunners are. They're a different breed of cat. Ken Hoff was my crew chief, the other gunner on the left side, and consummate warrior. Every mission before we would leave, he'd throw a duffel bag on the floor of that aircraft that had a couple revolvers in it, had some pin flares, and it had a radio, it had food, had ammunition, it had bandages. Okay, he's a consummate warrior, but he also loved killing. And he was the best there was. And he had balls so big, you know, give me stuff that I would just not do. We had a new, what we call Charlie Pop, new, not the aircraft commander, but they'd break these new guys coming in, and that was the right seat. And, you know, Ken comes around and says, "Watch this." And he crawls on the outside of the aircraft. We're 5,000 feet in the air. And there's these things to get up on it. And he crawls up. He's underneath the blade, and he crawls, and he looks down at the Charlie Pop and smiles at him. And then crawls back. I wouldn't dare do that. I wouldn't dare do that. But Ken, even when we did, I'll give you an example. There was a French rubber plantation. This is before we went to the coast. And after Cambodia, we do what they call purple teams. And that was a Cobra, and then us, if we had to pick up any survivors, and then the Lowbird. Okay? Low-bird was a little two-man aircraft gunner, and and our job was make sure you recover them or engage if the situation is right. But that guy up there is going to cover you. And we're our typical patrol, and we go in, and it's inside Cambodia, and here's this French compound, okay? And as we come over, I'm looking, and I really don't see anything different, and I look up, and then I see it. And it's the second level, and it had the old French Verona, and there was machine gun there. And we're hitting right towards it. Well, I love these guys. This Cobra pilot seen it, and it was just like out of Hollywood. 2 missiles, and it's like it just exploded and blew those guys through those big doors, just blew them through. And then all shit started to go. There were generally green troops, and it was chaos. That's where I got my first air medal, actually. We're shooting. It was pretty target-rich. There was this one NBA soldier. He had his pack and his rifle, and we came around, and I seen him, and I was going to come in, the low bird got in front of me. So I didn't fire, and I'm watching this, and we're kind of, low bird's here, and we're just kind of doing this. Cobra's doing his thing, and it must have been a kid. He throws his rifle down and runs. He throws his pack down and is run. He keeps looking at the low bird. Of course, the gunner's doing this behind him, and just terrorizing. And he's just running. His eyes are about this big, and he runs to this big tree, and he does the old squirrel thing. He gets trying to keep the tree between him and that gunner. Okay, and we're watching this, and I'm thinking to myself, just end this. You don't need to do this. They're fucking with him. They're going around, and they're just laughing, having a good time. Just stop this stuff. And then he finally got to the top of the tree, and like that. And no sooner did he do that, and here comes this moped with another one on, taking off out of there. Low bird gets behind him. And there's a right degree turn in the road. He doesn't want to slow up. He can't slow up. He's not going to make that turn. And just before the turn, just brought that machine gun up and hit him. And again, just like on Hollywood, and that moped went, they went into a field. Okay? And we go back, and we're going around, the low bird, going around this section of woods, and there was this grass hut. But I didn't know it was there yet because I did it in a few minutes. But we're following the low bird, too low, okay? But we're following him. And the low bird, and all of a sudden the low bird blows up. And fire, it just, he got hit by something, and we're coming around. And I didn't know what he got hit, but what he got hit by inside this little grass hut thing, they have a machine gun set up. So when the low bird came around, they just blasted him. And now we're coming behind that same way on my side. I wouldn't have noticed that. We would have went there. We would have got blasted. Okay, and I still didn't know what was happening. And all of a sudden, this grass hut just blows to pieces, and we fly through this mud and straw. And that boy up there seen it. He's seen everything, and he also seen us coming around. That would have ended my life there. He would have caught me with my pants down. I would never have known until it was too late. But that boy up there saved my life and saved our lives. The low craft went up and landed in a field, and we flew right behind him and sat down. And we ran, and I grabbed this guy, and he screams. And the other guy grabbed him. We got to get out of here, man. We got to get out of here. We can't be on the ground like this, And so we just grabbed him. He's screaming, and we put him on the floor of the aircraft. And the other guy, instead of coming with us, he crawls on this missile pod on the Cobra and hangs on. Let's go. And so we're lifting off, and here's this guy hanging on for dear life on this missile pod. This guy, what happened was, as soon as we got him back, we helped him, and we cut his Nomax, because you had to wear Nomax. And I noticed on his sleeves, it was like somebody taking a white cloth on both hands. And what it was inside the Nomax, his skin had cooked. And it was all skin that just peeled down, and it looked like that. And I assume that when we grabbed him by the legs, probably the same thing had happened. I don't know what his back and stuff looked like. I doubt whether he survived those kinds of burns. Okay. The other guy wasn't hurt nearly as bad because he's hanging on to this rocket pod, and we went back with him. That was it. Bird was down, crashed. That's it. We're out of here. And yeah, just like out of Hollywood, but it's a real thing.
Is it just sort of a very strange experience to go from being sort of at the relative comforts of home? You get up in the morning, you're on a base, maybe a regular schedule, and then you can be suddenly in a situation where all of this stuff is blowing up around you.
You know what? War is something you love. War is something you hate. War is something that scares the living fucking shit out of you. But at the same time, it gives you an adrenaline, okay? It's a hard thing to say. It's a love-hate relationship because you're playing the ultimate game. Man hunting another man, okay? It's the ultimate game because if you lose your life. And all the emotions that pair with that are involved, okay? When I first came home, it was weird. You know, I come home, my folks picked me up at the airport in Kent County, and I've been gone a long time. And my family come on and picked me up and took me home. And I remember sitting in the car looking out the window and seeing the buildings go by. But you're not here, you're there. If that makes any sense. So I moved in with my parents temporarily. And then had some of the dreams, okay? You know, your hands wired behind you. And Ken Hoff, he'd be on his knees over there, and I'd be on my knees over here, and we'd be waiting, and you could see somebody behind him all of a sudden, in front of his forehead, and he'd go down, and then I feel that same guy behind me, and I wake up. Okay? And my dad would wake me up. He'd come in and say, Les, wake up. And the only other really, you have dreams. The other dream is, here I'm in my underwear in my bed upstairs in this old farmhouse. And I know it's hallucinations, but I look towards the floor and I see the tops of trees flying by. And I'm thinking there's a machine gun, M60, on my mattress. And I'm thinking to myself, this is hallucinating. There is no M60 on your frickin' mattress, and those are not trees. That's so real. And I get up on the gun, I just start shooting. And next thing I know, my dad's grabbing me. Les, wake up. So I had to get out of there. So I went and got myself a place. And I haven't been home since. Good parents. And, yeah. That's my story.
Okay. I'd like to, if I can, go back and kind of follow up on a few other dimensions of this. When you were serving as a door gunner, what kind of physical facilities did you have? I mean, you had the door gunners slept together, and you divided into sort of the two groups and so forth. What else was on the base?
You had your chow area. For instance, my job as a door gunner, I was up at probably 5 o'clock, and I'd go out, bring the guns, okay, go out to the aircraft, snap them on, and wait there for what we call the ammo jeep. The ammo jeep would come along, stop. What do you need? Well, I need so many rounds of this. I want some smokes on this. You know, you tell them what you need. Bang, you got it. And if we need smokes, I get everything set and ready to go. And then I wait, and it start getting light, and the pilots come. And they get in the aircraft. You untie the blade, because you got to tie the blades down. And where you park these aircraft is like two walls, maybe 8 feet high, just straight, open on both ends, and you put the aircraft in there. That you bed it down there, and then tie down with a snap on the blade so the wind can't damage it. Okay. You wait for the pilots. They come on out, and they get in. And we just stand on the skid outside, and they bring it up, check the dial, maybe bring it up, hover about like so, just hovering back and forth inside there, and then they set it down, and we go get breakfast. We'll go down to the chow house, and, you know, the eggs, always, never, you know, it's always dehydrated eggs. Cold toast, greasy bacon, it tasted wonderful. Coffee, okay, good deal. And then we go back and start up in whatever mission we run. You back that aircraft up, just like a car. And then you go through what you call transition. And that's as it cuts through the wind, there's a shaking as it goes where it has to go. And it call it transition. And I remember I had a little bag of marijuana. It was really light. And it was sick because I'd smoke a lot in the area. And the smoke's gone. You know, who cares? It relaxed me. It never interfered. It just relaxed me. You know, I wouldn't get so hyper. And we went through transition. Next thing I know, that little bag of marijuana floats up like this. And then as it went through and dropped between the two pilots. And picked up. This yours? Thanks, sir. You know, a lot of the pilots smoked. They did things. A lot of them did. They were kids. You know, we looked up to these guys because our lives were in their hands. And they would say their lives were in our hands. And so you became very close. You know, because you're going to live or die together, period. We're all in this thing together. We're not going anywhere. And then prior to that also, a new development, a new dynamic started to change the situation in Vietnam. And that was probably 4 months before I was going to go. And they introduced I think it was a Chinese shoulder-fired rocket that would be a little bit heat-seeking. Mm-hmm. And they'd fire it after the chopper went by on your big turbines, okay? And the unit that we took their place here was moved up there. And they were just getting slaughtered. They were losing aircraft. And so they were starting to strip our units to take their places. Mm-hmm. You know, every day, you know, you wonder where you're going to go. You talk to each other and says, you know, 428's going north. That was our bird. Okay, you're going north. Don't want to go north. You know, I'll stick her. You know, you see which birds have to go there and take their place and do the job, get troops in, get ammo in, whatever it was. And that was starting to really wear on me because, you know, everything was seen to come that I wasn't ever going to get home. Mm-hmm. I was lucky falling out of the aircraft, very lucky. Okay, I was lucky in these other things too, very lucky. And now this shoulder fight, I could just taste fate. And so, you know, Cooper, he did me a real favor. Mm-hmm. And finally went on an R&R, and when I came back, it was time to go home.
Where'd you go on the R&R?
Bangkok, Thailand. Wonderful place. Me and Jimmy Parker, youngest door gunner in the first cab. He was like 17, lied. Mm-hmm. And he never had any luck. His dad was killed early. His mother was murdered by his stepfather. His stepfather almost beat him to death, so his granny raised him. Mm-hmm. And Jimmy and I were real good friends, but Jimmy had become a heroin addict. Mm-hmm. And I had tickets to Australia. That was really one. And all that was left was Bangkok. Mm-hmm. And so I gave up my ticket to Australia, and I went to Bangkok with Jimmy. And we get into our hotel. It's just like a nice hotel here. Mm-hmm. And we check into our rooms, and I wasn't in my room 3 minutes, and there was a knock on the door. And the hotel manager comes in with 6 girls. So you pick. They take good care of you. You pick. And I said, no, we're going down to the Happy because other troops said, go down to the Happy, pick a girl down there. And then they went out, and knock. Same thing Jimmy said. So we rented a taxi for the week, and he was always on call. He took us down to the Happy. And we go in there, and behind us there's a couple of GIs who met their wives there. That's very cool, you know. And we're sitting at this big bar, and I'm looking through a mirror. I can see into this next room. And there's some of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. They had little numbers here. And like 25 of them. Beautiful. And so I called the taxi cab driver over, and I said, I want one that likes to smoke pot. Number 50. Thanks, Hong. And a bartender, number 50. So instead of being discreet, they get on this loud microphone. Number 50. And they, jeez. And I turn around, and I look, and these women are just staring at me. You know, I feel like saying, what, your husband's in the motor pool? And it's like, give me a break, leave me alone, you know? And so she comes out. She speaks fairly good English, and we got talking, and she shows me her medical card. Okay, and she says it's $25 first day, $15 every day after that. I take good care of you, show you a good time. So we agreed. And then we get back to the hotel later, and she's about this high, Mutt and Jeff, and I'm checking in, and God, I feel like these daggers are pointing at my back, and I turn around, here's the same two couples sitting there in the lobby staring at me. I said, come on, give me a break, come on. What do you think I'm going to do, go meet my mother in Hawaii? Come on, leave me alone. Don't try to guilt me on this, okay? And she did. She did her job. It was wonderful. Best 5 days ever. She actually had me thinking she cared, which, of course, they don't. But that's what a professional she was. It was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful reprieve. In fact, I ran out of money after 3 days. I'd gotten into a poker game before I went to Saigon and got skinned about $300. And so I was low on cash when I got there, and she picked up the tab. And then I thought, God, this woman, I'm in love. And I'm sitting in the aircraft and wait to go back to Vietnam. I'm at the window, and I'm waving to her. And, we're waiting there for her, and then I look again, and she's hustling a couple other guys that just got off the plane. I said, good job. You gave me the best time of my life. You actually made me feel like I was special. It's just what you should have done. You loved me to pieces. You took care of me. God bless you. Time to go home. And then when I got back, it was time to, within 2 days, I refused to fly. I wasn't going to fly anymore. No, go. No. I'm going home. I'm not flying anymore. And then it came time to say goodbye, and it was one of the hardest things I ever did, say goodbye to those guys. It was. A low bird came in and picked me up. And I didn't want to leave. I think at that moment, if somebody said, you want to extend your tour another year, I probably would have done it. Because that was my life. That was my home. Home that was a long time ago. This is my family. I'm going to miss this. You don't think so, but at the time, I'm going to miss this. Now, you could also die. Okay, but these are my family, man. And you could see that leaving, and I seen it with other guys that left. It was a hard choice. And even then, the low bird picked me up and said goodbye, and then they flew around again, and everybody's saying goodbye, good luck, okay, and left. Before we left, though, there was another group that came in and wanted to know, since I was going home, Jimmy Park was going home, Louis P. Dudas from Detroit was going home too, all three of us, if we were interested in being door gunners out of Bangkok into Laos for $100 a day. Well, it sounded pretty good for $100 a day. I've been doing this in the triangle for $365 a month. Okay, $100 a day, that's $3,000 a month. If I could last a year, and what's Laos compared to frickin' Ho Chi Minh NBA Army? If I could do a year, $36,000, and go home. And so we talked about it. And so when we got back, I went and got my passport. Louis P. Dudas did. He went and got his, and Jimmy Parker got his. We got all set to go back, and Jimmy Parker was killed in Olean, Illinois. Where a bus has to stop at a railroad tracks. He wasn't even driving. He pulled in his pickup truck, and they couldn't see, and he went across and got hit by a freight train. Both of them were killed instantly. And I bought a motorcycle and trying to elude the police, hit a pole, and ended up going out into a field. They didn't know where I went. They were in low part. They came out. I was gone. And I thought I was going to die out there. Grass, wheat, and stuff was this high, and I could taste a lot of blood in my mouth. Lots of blood. And I'm thinking, oh, you stupid fuck. You cracked your ribs, or they punctured your lungs. You're going to drown in your own blood. This is real good, lass. This is real good. Come home, and this is what happens. Real good. And so I laid back. I laid down. I mean, there's nothing you could do. It's 2:30 in the morning. I could see through the grass this barn and house over there with a mercury light that was lit. But lots of blood. I was coughing up a lot of blood. And my arm hurt every time I moved it, and that leg was really hurting every time I moved it. So I laid back and waited. I waited. 5 minutes goes by. Shit, I should have been dead by now. Maybe I'm not. And so I had one good arm, one good leg. I kicked my way to this farmhouse, the only farmhouse that didn't have a phone, and banged my helmet on the door. Thank God they came, and he takes off, almost rode me over in the driveway, and to get an ambulance, call somebody. The ambulance came and picked me up. Bike was gone. You know, my helmet had a gouge on it. You know, thank God I had a helmet on. It would kill me instantly. And I ended up in the hospital for a while. Cracked my spine, almost lost a kidney. Some cracked ribs, no broken ribs, just fucking screwed up. And that's where I met my first wife. She was a nurse.
But it kind of finished off the plan to go off to Laos.
It did. Yeah. Because I didn't have medical insurance. And what I did have left, I ended up paying my medical bills. I was broke. And Jimmy Parker was dead. And Louis P. Dudas ended up going to UP. And to this day, he doesn't talk to anybody. I tried to reach him. He is married. And my second wife finally found him, you know, talked to his wife. And she says, he won't talk about it. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. He doesn't want to see anybody. He just wants to be left alone. Okay. Okay. So be it. You know, no big deal. You know, I don't think you did enough to go be a hermit somewhere. It's not like you survived from a death camp. You know, you can't deal with things. So,
Well, it's a pretty intense experience doing what you guys did, and it's got to play out in different ways, just in their heads or how they deal with it.
It does. You know, I can't seem to attach to anybody as far as normal feelings. I just don't. I've been married twice, divorced twice. I tend to self-medicate. I used to have a quick temper. I don't anymore. Not much anyway. But sometimes I talk to my brother and I'm thinking, geez, what would I be like if I'd never gone into service? I grew up in Hudsonville. I went to church every day, or Sundays twice. I graduated from a good high school. Had a job with Booster Pool Company. I probably would have married somebody from my high school. I probably worked for John's Booster. I probably would never, I never drank. I never was affiliated with any kind of drugs or anything all through high school. I probably would have been a totally different person. Probably would have bought my little house in Wyoming. You know, this Booster Pool Company, cement worker, just good pay. I don't know who my wife would have been. She'd probably work too and raise our kids, whoever they might be. And, it had been different. Now, I don't go to church. I don't like being at church. It gives me creeps. I don't know why. But,
well, it does make for a remarkable story. I will tell you that.
Well, you know, my good friend Mike says it's unique. I don't know if it's so unique as me putting myself in situations that should never have happened, you know, but then surviving it too. But a day doesn't go by. You don't think about it. I am truly sick of that. Truly am. I'm sick of, you know, listening to music. Not for the sake of listening to music, but then these memory flashes come back. You know, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of thinking about it before I go to bed, when I get up, during the day, for no reason. And this has been going on for a long time. But it's like my Uncle Chet said, he's passed away. He lost his whole, he was in the Army in the Second World War fighting the Germans. And his whole unit was wiped out by 88s. He had dysentery, so he wasn't there at the time. But I talked to him, and he said, you know what, Les? He says, to this day, I can hear what a tank with that 88 sounds like when they put it into gear. You know, when riding lawnmower, when you stick the okay, it's a much shriller. He said, I remember that like yesterday, today. He said, and I always will. The fear, the sound of it. And, you know, anything with high impact, like I told my brother Lee, I said, if you're in an accident and 5 bad automobile crashes, guess what? Every time you get in a car, you're going to think about stuff. Every time you hear a horn or a screeching of a tire, you're going to think about stuff. This is really no different. My brother Lee had a freak accident when he was 41 at the Gus Macker. A tree branch storm came in, crushed his back. And I said, you don't think about that every day? Yeah, because it's high impact.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's high impact, it seats itself in your subconscious. And it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. And that's fine. I'm proud of my duty. I'd do it again. I met some really great guys. Mm-hmm. I had some very interesting experiences that I survived. Stuff that I would never have had if I had grown up and lived in Hudsonville and just worked for John Spoelstra.
All right. Well, listen, thank you very much for coming in and telling the story today.
Thanks for taking your time.